A sacred fire was lit this morning, and it will remain burning over the next month.
Tonight, a First Nation in Manitoba starts a search for suspected unmarked graves.
Yes, it's actually really fun, enjoying seeing all the athletes actually compete, and then it's just fun.
Budding young journalists take the games to the gram.
It always shocks me that we're not represented in comedy, especially the women, because we're very, very funny and very resilient.
And a new series looks at urban Indigenous youth living in the 90s. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Miniguzabi Anishinaabe, formerly known as the Pine Creek First Nation in Manitoba, has begun excavation of 14 possible sites of unmarked graves. Our reporter Leanne Sanders was at the community, about a 4-hour drive from Winnipeg, for a sunrise ceremony this morning. She joins us now from the road.
Miniguzabi Anishinaabe Pine Creek First Nation, some 430 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg, gathered for a sunrise ceremony today ahead of a community update provided by Brenda Catchaway. She's the economic development coordinator who spearheaded having a ground-penetrating radar search done after the 215 unmarked burials were found at Kamloops in 2021. A sacred fire was lit this morning, and it will remain burning over the next month while an anthropologist from the University of Brandon and her team excavate 14 reflections that were found by radar under the basement of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Roman Catholic Church. The Pine Creek Residential School operated on a site adjacent to the church between 1890 and 1969. Some 700 children attended. The 14 locations in the basement measure 1 meter by 1 meter and are approximately 1 meter deep. They're marked with little red flags and small stones right now. Chief Derek Nepanak was adamant that anything found would remain in Pine Creek's custody to decolonize the process. Elder Reg Nepanak said it was time to heal and to move on. A further update will be provided in 4 weeks' time. Catchaway says if nothing is found, it will be a relief to the community members, but if remains are found, they will do everything and anything they can to identify them. I'll have much more on this story tomorrow on APTN National News.
Thanks, Leanne. Manitoba RCMP reported over the weekend that they found no evidence of criminal activity related to the site after a year-long investigation. However, they plan to continue the investigation if anything criminal is uncovered in the current searches. As Leanne said, we'll have more on this story tomorrow. A new Senate report makes a number of recommendations on what the Trudeau government should do to help survivors access residential school documents in a more timely manner. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
The Senate report is called Honoring the Children Who Never Came Home. And it has a number of recommendations, including calling on organizations who have withheld residential school records to appear before the Senate Committee on Indigenous Peoples, extend the Residential Schools Community Support Fund until 2033, and provide stable and long-term funding to the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation so it can fulfill its mandate. Jesse Boytu is the senior archivist with NCTR. He says providing communities with the necessary funding to access and properly process records is key.
They might have one person on staff and to comb through boxes and boxes of backlog records, scan them, put the necessary metadata tagging attached to it, and then send copies. It's long-term work. He also says calling on representatives from the federal and provincial governments and Roman Catholic Church to appear before the Senate and answer questions is a good idea. Transparency and accountability, having a face to attach to an organization to sort of ask questions to, and just have a greater understanding for communities who are sort of trying to navigate these different archives. Evelyn Korkmaz is a survivor of St. Anne's Residential School in northeastern Ontario. She supports the report, but says she remains skeptical the Senate will be able to get these institutions to release records.
St. Anne's residential school survivors have been in litigation for 10 years asking the government to release our records. So, you know, if the rule of law does not apply to the government, how are they going to get these records?
The report recommends the Senate Committee on Indigenous Peoples begin calling witnesses to appear before it in the fall. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Now, for more on this, Senator Brian Francis spoke earlier with Sav Jonesa.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Senator Brian Francis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
The Senate committee released a report today with recommendations. Can you summarize those for us?
Well, basically, yes, the objective of the interim report that we did in the Indigenous committee was to support and amplify the mandate of both the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation and the Independent Special Interlocutor, who work directly with Indigenous communities, survivors, and families to document and share the history and the impact of the Indian residential school system.
Yeah, some organizations still have not released documents that they're holding about residential schools. Who are they?
We have the names of those on Appendix B of the report. There are a number of entities that are still yet to release these documents, and it's actually quite disappointing that we have to go the route of asking for them again and having the committee do that when they should be releasing them anyway, because there's survivors, families that still are waiting for answers that haven't got answers for a number of years. And again, it's disappointing that we have to go this road, but it's a road that we are going to go down.
Why is it important that these documents are released?
Well, it's important to bring closure to survivors, to families who have waited for years. Some residential school survivors are elders now, they're aging, they still don't have answers related to family members and what happened to them in these residential schools. So it's important that any and all documents be shared with the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation to help bring closure to the families.
Are there any explanations as to why it's taken this long to get these organizations to release the documents?
Well, that is one of our recommendations, is to have committee meeting in the early fall and to invite these groups that have not submitted the information to come to the Senate committee to testify and let us know why they haven't released the documents yet.
And what are the next steps for the Senate committee?
Well, in the next steps for the Senate committees, we're going to be following up on our recommendations. We feel that we've provided an excellent roadmap for government to do this sacred work along with the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation and the Special Interlocutor's Office. We feel that these recommendations are a really good roadmap in terms of moving forward and providing much needed answers. And the time has come now to do this. Talk is talk, but really the rubber has to hit the road here now. Families are depending on this, and we have to do all that we can to support them. And we'd like to look at an interim or a progress report to the committee by December of 2023, just to see where everyone is with the recommendations.
Well, I think that's where we'll need to end it for today, but thank you again so much for joining us, Senator Brian Francis.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'd like to hear your thoughts on the recommendations and your thoughts about those holding back residential school documents. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. A man is dead after an incident at a homeless encampment in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. It's believed to be a homicide. Prince Albert police say they are investigating after a 42-year-old man died from his injuries. They would not say what those injuries were. This is the second homicide in Prince Albert this year. The Prince Albert Police Service is still gathering evidence. They're asking anyone with information or video of the area to contact police or Crime Stoppers. Time to step aside for a quick break. Still to come, teenage journalists find a unique way to showcase the North American Indigenous Games.
We wanted to be able to give others a chance to be able to talk about themselves and what they like and what their interests are.
Welcome back. The North American Indigenous Games came to a soggy conclusion over the weekend. A record rainfall caused cancellations, but didn't dampen spirits. Angel Moore brings us this wrap-up.
This past week saw 5,000 athletes from over 700 nations compete in 16 different sports that took place in over 20 venues. Historic rainfall meant NAIG organizers had to cancel Friday evening's closing ceremony and concert. On Saturday, the cultural village at Halifax Commons was shut down, and the rains washed out the baseball fields, canceling the under-16 and under-19 male and female softball championship games, so each team was awarded a gold medal. Team Saskatchewan took home the most medals, winning 175, followed by British Columbia with 161. The storm left damaged roads and bridges due to flooding, causing the province of Nova Scotia to declare a state of emergency. Sadly, 4 people went missing after the vehicles became submerged in floodwaters. On Monday afternoon, RCMP announced the body of one missing person has been found. Angel Moore, APTN National News, July, also known as Halifax.
Still with NAIG, Team Saskatchewan has more than athletes. There's also a few budding reporters. They created an Instagram account, and as Angel Moore reports, it's to interview athletes, record their NAIG experience, and have fun on social media.
These young reporters are not with any media outlet. They are Team Saskatchewan under 14 athletes. They interview other athletes for their Instagram account. Mila Stonechild says it's to have fun.
We wanted to be able to give others a chance to be able to talk about themselves and what they like and what their interests are, but also do it in a fun manner with the speaker up close to make the voices funny and all that.
The budding reporters began interviews when they arrived at the airport and posting on Instagram for everyone to see. Emily Watson says the entire team contributes.
I came up with the first few questions when we're still just doing them at the airport, but then a couple of us, when we started doing more interviews with more people, everyone else kind of helped come up with more questions too.
Sophia Thunderbird says the highlight of the week has been the competitions.
Yes, it's actually really fun, enjoying seeing all the athletes actually compete, and then it's just fun.
The tables were turned and the young news hounds interviewed yours truly, looking for a scoop about APTN News. You can check them out on their Instagram account, Team Sask NAIG Interviews. Angel Moore, APTN National News, July, also known as Halifax.
Well, as the games wrapped up in Halifax, some Manitoba teams are coming home with hardware, including the under-16 boys volleyball team, which went undefeated. The team won over Saskatchewan in the final and took home gold. Our colleagues at CTV News met up with their coach at the airport last night.
These guys came to work hard, and it was a business trip. That's what they like to call it. It was business only. These guys have worked hard throughout the year, whether it's with their schools or with their clubs, and they deserve to win. Their talent and their skill levels through the roof. Their athleticism is amazing, and the way they bonded together was just fantastic.
Also returning home Sunday were the gold medal winning members of the under-19 women's basketball team. Overall, Manitoba finished 5th in the medal standings with 32 gold, 20 silver, and 18 bronze. Nearly 450 athletes represented Manitoba alone at the Games. And Saskatchewan ended with the largest medal haul with 175. BC had the second highest tally with 161 medals. Ontario came in third and had the highest number of gold medals, and a total medal count of 127. Fourth place went to Alberta with 81 medals in all. Congrats to everybody. I'm sure it was a great time despite the soggy end. Still to come, we'll be speaking to the creators of a new series coming to APTN and Crave.
And I created it because I come from comedy, and I really love like the classic coming of age comedies, and I've never ever seen it from an Indigenous lens.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And this photo was sent in from the 51st annual Back to Batoche Days that took place over the weekend. Tens of thousands of people attended the festival that celebrates Métis culture with music, entertainment like Indian relays and softball. Thanks to all our viewers who submit such amazing photos. Be sure to share your pictures by sending them to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 28 in Halifax, 28 and showers for Fredericton. 20 with rain in Kuujjuaq, 25 for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Showers and 27 in Montreal, rain and 25 in Val-d'Or. 27 for Sault Ste. Marie, 26 in North Bay. Sun's out and 26 for Thunder Bay, showers and 28 in Sioux Lookout. 13 in Churchill, 28 for God's Lake and Norway House. 32 with showers in Winnipeg, rain and 29 in Dauphin. Rain and 32 for Regina, 1 degree warmer with rain in Saskatoon. Showers and 30 in Meadow Lake, 24 with rain in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, showers and 17 for Peace River and Grand Prairie. 24 with rain in Edmonton, sunny and 29 for Lethbridge. Rain and 21 in Vancouver, showers and 24 for Kamloops. 15 is the high with rain in Prince George, 19 and a wet day in Smithers. 28 with showers in Old Crow, 21 and rain in Whitehorse. 27 for Yellowknife, 25 with rain in Norman Wells. 18 in Sax Harbor, 23 in Paulatuck. 15 for Chesterfield, sun's out and 21 in Baker Lake. 16 for Resolute and Igloolik. Well, as we mentioned, tens of thousands of people were in Batoche, Saskatchewan over the weekend for the annual Back to Batoche Festival. Among the festivities was, of course, the music, including Ryan Kaplan. The North Dakota Fiddler was among many who played a set at the four-day event. Batoche Days gives the opportunity to preserve and promote Métis culture through storytelling, music, fiddling, jigging, square dancing, traditional food, and traditional land use. It's been celebrated since the 1970s and is open to participants from all over the world to learn the rich and resilient history of Métis and the significant role that they played in Canadian history. Looks like a bash. Well, to BC now, where an artist is taking a once ancient practice of her people to new heights. APTN's Tina House has that story.
I did something more contemporary, whereas I added abalone buttons to it. And I'm actually having a friend of mine who's a fabulous beater. She's beating 2 hummingbirds, and they're going to be applied right here in the middle facing each other. So
for the last 37 years, Deborah Sparrow has brought back the ancient tradition of weaving, and in doing so, she has now become a master weaver. Her work can now be seen all over the world.
No, the significance of our weaving is to bring back into this world the values and culture that it represents in our Musqueam territory for now. I mean, when I started, that's what I was looking for, our identity, because of residential school and the impact that it had on us and the assimilation and everything being taken away. You know, you go 100 years without identifying with the kind of work you see behind me.
And Deborah says relearning the techniques once practiced by her people wasn't easy.
We had to teach ourselves and call on our ancestors and walk with them, ask them to guide us. And I know that might sound to some people in the world not realistic because everybody wants proof of everything. But as Indigenous people, we know that we can rely on our ancestors. We can rely on our intuitive connection to them.
Sparrow says the book called Salish Weaving, written by Paula Gustafson in 1980, became like her Bible and taught her about the techniques and how to make patterns. And here in her living room, as she creates another masterpiece, she explains how she creates such intricate designs.
And I'm using 2 colors here, so I got one brown and one beige. And I get to make this pattern in here that you see. It's quite nice. It's just the same stitch as this, only using one white, one brown.
Her work has been lit up at BC Place. Huge murals all around the city. And galleries as well as private collections showcase her work.
You're not just talking about the weaving process, you're talking about the whole life process of how we value everything around us as Indigenous people and at one time as all people.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Very cool. A lot of patience to do that type of work. Well, production is underway on a new Indigenous-led comedy series that takes place in Winnipeg. Don't Even is going to be a 6-part series.
Background and action.
The urban Indigenous coming-of-age story will be on APTN and Crave. It follows 2 best friends in the late 90s Winnipeg as they grapple with their uncertain futures after their final year of high school. The lifelong friends bask in newfound freedom and face adult life choices. There isn't a release date quite yet, but creator Amber Sequan Daniels of Garden Hill First Nation says the story brings more Indigenous representation youth can relate to.
I created it because I come from comedy, and I really love the classic coming-of-age comedies, and I've never ever seen it from an Indigenous lens. So I wanted to make a coming-of-age comedy, something that I could have used when I was that age. Humor is such a part of our survival and our resilience. So to me, it always shocks me that we're not represented in comedy, especially the women, because we're very, very funny and very resilient.
Love the theme of that show. Can't wait to see it when it comes out. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Monday. Of course, for news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy, thanks for being with us. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.